Alright, ladies and gentlemen, MacMan here, back in Hearthstone. A little card wrap-up. I like to do this after the adventure. I did this after Next Ramus. I thought it went well. It just kind of go over the cards that you gained and also give you some thoughts on how I felt that Blackrock Mountain went. Let's take a quick look at the cards here, or, you know, somewhat lengthy look at the cards. Nothing's ever quick in Hearthstone, is it? So the Blackrock Mountain set. Well, first of all, Blackrock Mountain I felt was a really cool adventure. It did some things that were different from the previous adventures and anything else they had done before. It had a lot of tinkering going on with the cards and the battles that they didn't have before. One of the things I felt that they did that was very different was they really hid a lot of the hero powers that you were fighting against. They made it very difficult for you to try to predict what was going to happen in a match and really forced replayability. Where in the past I'd been able to go through normal mode pretty much first time through on just about everything in Next Ramus. I was not able to do that in Blackrock Mountain in most cases. Some of them went pretty quick, but some of them did not. Some of them were like heroic, like they were just insanely hard for some reason. And again, has a lot to do with the mix of decks that you're playing with. You know, the pre-made decks that you normally play with, do they work well or not well against a certain hero? And then what happens is you end up switching from something completely different. Like my Paladin is a very mid-level based deck, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, you can't beat him with this, and you go to something crazy like an aggro warrior or like a Warlock rush deck, and then you just kill him right away, and you're like, oh, it was just the wrong deck, you know. But there were other times where you really had to build a deck to really deal with it, and that's what I love about the adventures, and they really forced your hand in Blackrock Mountain, I felt, as opposed to Next Ramus, to force you to make decks, even to beat it in normal. Now, heroic is a whole nother level. Excuse me, a whole nother level. In Next Ramus as well as this, you had to build decks no matter what. You almost never could beat a heroic with just a default deck. It happened a couple of them maybe, but for the most part no. And I've beaten all of them except for the last one actually. At this point I have not beaten him yet, but I am on it. So I enjoyed it very much. I love these expansion sets, or these adventures I should say, and I hope they keep coming, and I'm sure that they will. I think they're doing very well with them. And why not? They are a lot of fun. So let's take a look at some of the cards they have going here. And if you have any comments about Blackrock Mountain, your own sort of personal thoughts and things, I'd love to have commentary back and forth in the comments section, so leave a comment. So these are just my opinions on these cards. It's hard to tell exactly how they're going to play out, the kinds of combinations that are going on, especially some of these classes I don't play that much, so I might not see some obvious combinations, but I'll give you just my snap judgments on these cards. A Druid of the Flame seems like a fantastic card to me. Transform into a 5/2 minion or a 2/5 minion. Just looking at it as a base, you're getting basically a 7 stat for 3, which is always good. But the best part about it is you get to choose what it is. So if you need some damage later on, they put something out, you know, something like a 6/5 or something that you need to knock off. You could use a 3 cost to do that, which would be fantastic. And earlier in the game, you can knock off a lot of small minions, making it a 2/5. So you can almost pull it in any situation and get a lot of value out of it. The Volcanic Lumberer seems like he might be useful, but to me it seems like most Druid decks either are running a lot of big minions, in which case 7/8 for 9 cost is not great, especially with Taunt. You can't really even hide them behind a Taunt to keep them alive. And the odds are, if you're running those types of decks, you're not going to have a lot of small minions that are going to die on the turn that you're going to play this card. He's a 9 cost, so you can't really run something out there to kill a bunch of minions and then throw it out. So it's kind of a rough thing. It's very situational. So I don't love this card, but I do love Druid of the Flame. All right, Quick Shot. So now we're in the Hunter class. Quick Shot, I don't really like either of these cards, to tell you the truth. I could see Quick Shot getting some play in certain types of decks. Dealing 3 damage for 2 is you know, very similar to the Frostbolt that you get from the Mage, and only it doesn't freeze the opponent. So a lot of times Frostbolt is really useful because you can do the damage and then finish him off the next turn. You don't have to worry about him. In this case, you have to finish him off, or else you just throw in 3 damage for nothing. And the idea of having this and benefiting from the draw card, I just don't see that happening very often, that your hand is going to be empty and this is the only card left in it. I don't know, that just doesn't work for me. I don't see running this card. But on the other hand, a Hunter could use a little bit more direct damage to minions as well as to face, of course. Face Hunter needs another way to do 3 damage to face, good lord. Core Ranger, you have a 4/4 for 4, and then you could possibly have an additional 3/3, so it could be a 7/7, but again, if your hand is empty. I'm not sure what they're getting at with these cards. in terms of that. I mean, it's just Hunter Rush decks. Like, we need more incentive for people to run Face Hunter. I'm not seeing it, but we'll see. We'll see how these get worked in. Hunters are a very creative class now, but I still think they could have used more for the beasts. I mean, he is another beast, but I don't know. I don't love these cards, really. I don't feel like they gave him a lot of help, but I also don't think Hunters need a lot of help either. Alright, Mage. So, the Mage is always an interesting class because there are really very different ways to play it. The Mech Mage is getting a lot of play. So we'll just look at these cards sort of individually. So 3 cost, 2/4, that's pretty good to begin with. And then you get 2 damage every time you cast a spell. And it's split, so it's, 1/1, 1/1. This can be incredibly effective. I've actually played on the ladder. I haven't seen a lot of these cards on the ladder yet. Most people don't have all the cards unlocked. The average player is not going to buy this outright. They're going to play it as they gain enough gold to play each wing. But I have seen Flamewalker used. I've seen it used very effectively. People throwing this out mid-game and then being able to throw, missiles or some other one-cost little things and just getting the extra damage out of this. I've had them wipe boards with this guy, just killing everything on the board, just really destructive. So he's a really nice addition, I think, to the Mage, who could use some low-level minions as well. He's an effective 3-cost minion for them for sure. The Dragon's Breath, 4 damage, everyone's running it now. Even 4 damage at 5 is not great, but with the Mage, if you're running the right kind of deck, you could definitely make this more effective. I mean, if you think about it, though, you're talking, they get a Fireball, 4 cost for a 6 damage Fireball, which you don't have to have anything happen to do that. This one here, you probably have to have a couple minions die, but at the same time, again, it's more direct damage, and it isn't minion specific, so it could be minion or face, so some definite benefit there. So, not a terrible card. It might be a little situational, or it might be a little bit deck specific. I don't see it running in every deck. This card I could see running in most Mage decks that aren't just strictly Robo Mages. Paladin. As you know, if you've watched any of my videos, I am a Paladin guy. I play Paladin most of the time. I like it because it's never really the best deck out there. It's not the one that everyone's playing. It's just one off from that. It's good enough to compete, but it's never the one that everyone feels they need to play in order to rank all the way up. I've taken a Paladin to rank 2 and really just ran out of time at that point. I feel like it was strong enough to break through several months ago, and I haven't really gotten back to playing ladder that much. But it's a fun class to play for me. I enjoy it the most. So let's see how we've improved the Paladin, if we have. So the Solemn Vigil here, draw 2 cards. Costs 1 less for each minion that died this turn. Another one where it's sort of a sacrifice. You're seeing in this particular set a lot of sort of self-sacrifice and, well, it's not just even self-sacrifice, though. It's any minions. And obviously a lot of dragons, so we're going to talk a lot about dragons. Draw 2 cards. I mean, you could use more card draw with the Paladin. For the most part, you have really Blessing, which gives you a card every time somebody attacks, which is tough to count on. And then at the other end, you have an 8 cost that's giving you 3 cards draw and some health. But again, and turn 8, if you're just drawing cards, it's tough to run that. It's just like Sprint with the 7 cost Sprint for a rogue. They have nothing sort of in between, unless you're using, obviously you can use a lot of neutral cards for that. So drawing 2 cards, 1 less for each minion that died this turn, you could get away with that, because there are a lot of cards that the Paladin has now that gives them a lot of small minions, and there are times where you sacrifice a bunch of guys, but again, you have to line that up. I don't like it. It's not reliable enough for me, personally. This guy here, however, here's what I love about this. It's not next dragon you play costs 2 less. It's not on that turn. When I first saw this, I said, well, how often are you going to have a dragon? It would have to be a 7 cost dragon that it just didn't make sense to me. But I realized when you play this, it's the dragon anywhere. Like, you pull a dragon later in the game and he's going to cost 2 less the first time you play him. So this is a really interesting card, and there are a lot of cards that are now dragon specific where I think they really would like to see the Paladin be the class to maybe run dragons with, and this card really helps that out. So it's an interesting one if you're running that kind of deck. And by itself, it's not a terrible card. 5 cost for 5/5 is, so it's pretty average. It's not below average, let's put it that way. Twilight Whelp. So now we're in the Priest here. Priest is another one that could probably use an early addition to the deck, and this is a 1 cost. This is very nice. It's nice to have a 1 cost Priest card that's not their card draw mechanic. although it would still be the preferred card because you can usually draw a lot off a priest early on. But if you're holding a dragon, gain +2 health. A little specific, yes, but again, if you're playing a dragon deck, or even just a deck that has the Twilight Drake in it, again, excuse me, even a deck that has the Twilight Drake in it, this is going to be a really nice way to open your game with a 2/3 on 1 cost without the penalty of, let's say, giving them 5 health when they die, as they do with the zombie and things like that. So it's an interesting card. I'm seeing it a lot already, and why not? A 2-cost Resurrect. Summon a random friendly minion that died this game. Could be really good for a priest, because a lot of time the priests don't have any sort of medial quality minions. A lot of times priests are playing big cards. So percentage-wise, there's a pretty good chance you're going to pull something good. However, again, excuse me, I don't know what I ate a frog or something. Again, the problem with this card, really, if you look at it a little closer, is something needs to have died in order for me to use this, and what is likely that you're going to be playing this card over? I mean, are you going to be at turn 10 having already lost like some of your best big minions where this is actually going to be useful? Because if you play this early in the game, you're going to end up getting things like this back more often than not. So it's a tricky card, but I do like it, though. I think it's another way for priests to have kind of random draw, which is always fun. That's really the draw of a priest. The priest is probably my second favorite class. Not so much for competitive because it's not reliable enough, but it is fun. It can be a lot of fun. It's a lot of versatility because you pull a lot of cards that you don't normally have in a priest deck. And in this case, pulling cards that have already died, which means you might have 2 of the same card that you're not supposed to have. It's interesting. It's an interesting card. I like it for a priest. It could be more fun. Still, not the reliability I'd like to start seeing a little bit more with the priest. Rogue. Gang up here. So for 2 costs, choose a minion, shuffle 3 copies into your deck. I love this. I personally, I never play a rogue for whatever reason. I stayed away from it for a long time because rogue was like the de facto ranking deck. But I never really got into rogue. But I do think that this card, I would take this in any class at any time. Just choose a minion, 3 copies of it. So if the other guy plays a card that early in the game and you have this, and you can just like grab them, and it's really a way to add more cards to your deck as well. So if you run a milling deck with the rogue, this gives you basically 33 cards to play with, you know, things like that. So it's a really interesting card. Potentially 36 if you're running 2 of them. So yeah, I like this card, safe to say. Dark Iron Skulker. So the Dark Iron Skulker is a 5-cost 4/3, which is a little bit underpowered, but dealing 2 damage to any undamaged enemy minion can be good. But again, because it's undamaged, I'd like to see just to be any minion. Because again, he's only a 4/3 for 5. If he were like a 4/5 or a 5/4 or something like that, maybe, you know, because undamaged, that's rough. Like, what do you do 2 damage to something and you're killing it, then what is it really worth? You're not really, you know, they're going to trade something that only costs, you could have a 2-cost minion, tons of the 2-cost minions that only have 3 damage. They're going to take this guy out. I mean, that's not a good trade. So that 2 damage would need to be very important. I'm not sure how often that's going to be really helpful to an undamaged enemy minion. Something like this would be interesting with let's say the warrior, where they have their card that can destroy another card if they've been damaged. You know, another way to damage something. But it's an interesting card. I don't see running it though. Again, this is me though, and there's a lot of things I don't see about rogue. I don't play rogue, so it's entirely possible I'm missing a huge thing, and I probably am. And let me know in the comments if there's anything that just is completely I'm missing the point on. This happened with Nocturamus too. I had a first take on a lot of different cards, and when I went back and I started seeing how people were using them, it was amazing the combinations that people were coming up with that made them so useful. And I know there's reasons they're there. I mean, they're not being added by Blizzard because they thought they were just a useless card they'd throw in. There's got to be some combination of cards that makes them like extremely valuable. So I love that about Ranked, because you'll start seeing some of those combinations and seeing how people use them. Lava Shock. So the Shaman. Shaman is a pretty good class, but most people feel like the Shaman's a little underpowered. I tend to agree with them. The Overload's nice because you get something big out early, but if it goes down, then you're stuck for 2 turns. It's a little rough. So this right here, this is going to be huge for the Shaman. Deal 2 damage, but forget that. For 2 cost, I would just take the unlock your overloaded mana crystals, because this all of a sudden makes it a sort of a 1-2 punch. You could put something nasty out one turn, and the next turn be able to unlock those crystals again and put something else nasty out. That makes you very powerful as a Shaman. I love that card. It's a must-have. If you're running a Shaman deck without it, it's got to be because you don't own them. You got to get this if you're a Shaman fan. You got to run that card. Fireguard Destroyer, again, by himself, you're getting 9 stats for a 4 cost. At the very least, actually, you're getting 10 stats. If you get bad luck, he's a 4/6 for 4. Alright, overload of 1. So even, let's say he's a 5, okay, and technically he's not, but let's say he is. You're getting a 4/6 for 5, which is an average card to begin with. But more than likely, you're getting a 5/6 or a 7/6 for 4 or 5 cost, whatever you want to look at it with the overload. This is a great card. This it might actually be a little overpowered. We'll see how that one works out. But very nice card. Again, I think the Shaman got 2 of the better cards for their class specifically. They may have gotten the 2 best class-specific cards in this entire adventure, but they're very good cards. Warlock, Demon Wrath, deal 2 damage to all non-demon minions. Great if you're running a demon deck, which is something they seem to really be pressing on, and I'm glad they are. You know, they just, when you first start playing this game and you look at it and you go, I want to run this first thing everybody wants to run is a demon deck, because they see enough demon cards, it seems like it will work. They want to run maybe like a pirate deck, things like that. You see these certain things that clearly are supposed to work together, obviously, you know, Murloc deck, stuff like that. The demon deck was the one that was just always almost within grasp, but didn't quite get there. It was just not powerful enough to compete at the mid and higher ranks. This case, they've really been shoring that up with the last expansion and now Blackrock Mountain. They've been trying to do whatever they can to help the demon deck, and this one here is a good help for that. This one here is a very good help for that as well. A nice 3-cost demon that's not injuring yourself. As a matter of fact, it's only positive. If he gets hit, you end up getting more bodies on the board. So I like this card very much. This card's good. And I like the idea that it's going to hurt everything that's not demon. So if you're running a demon deck, it's basically a 3-cost, you know, consecrate, if you will. But, you know, this is a very good card as well. So the Warlock did pretty good here if you're a demon deck kind of a guy. I may go back and well, if I rerun a demon deck, which I might, I'm definitely going to be adding probably both of these cards. They're very good. Alright, so the Warrior. Let's see here. Revenge. Deal 1 damage to all minions. If you have 12 or less health, deal 3 damage instead. I guess. I mean, it's another Whirlwind. The Warrior's always looking for a way to do damage to his own minions too, in order to get them buffed up. So it definitely works for that. Now, the interesting thing is the 3 damage here. See, if this had actually been 4 damage. No, you know what? That's fine. So this is not a bad card at all. But I feel like if you're at 12 health or less, you're probably, I don't know how much this 3 damage is going to help keep you alive, but it might. Doesn't hurt though. Early in the game, this becomes a very good card for charging up your enraged minions. Axe Flinger. I love the Axe Flinger. I love the Axe Fling. 2 damage to the enemy hero every time he gets hit. That just seems like a lot of fun. Like, you can be hitting things. So if you get this out at turn 4 and you have some small minions, you could really put a lot of damage on them. It's really good, especially for a rush warrior, but really any warrior deck. It's not a bad card at all. It fills a spot around that 4 cost. There's nothing that's just default warrior that really works. And the best part about this card is the animation. When it does damage, or when it takes damage and throws the axe, it looks pretty damn cool. I like this card a lot. So 2 good cards for the warrior as well. Alright, so then we get into the neutral cards, where we really aren't squaring up any particular class, but there are definitely some classes that are obviously going to benefit more than others. So let's just go through these one at a time. We'll just take a quick look at them. There are, how many are there? There are 13 cards. So let's take a quick look at them. The Dragon Egg. So you're gonna be getting whelps every time he takes damage. You're getting whelps. I like this card for the same reason I like the other egg card, and mostly because it's sort of, I don't like this one quite as much as the other one, only because the other one drops a 4/4 when it dies. This one will drop you at least 2/1 whelp. It'll give you something. It's sort of a little protection against having some like mass damage spell or whatever thrown down on you. If you're playing a warrior and they start throwing Whirlwind out, they're going to be all of a sudden kind of adding more damage to the board instead of having the 0-2 there. It is concerning. It's something that you could just throw out at turn 1 and just be like, well, if you want to hit it. But, you know, he's not doing any damage. You know, it just makes people think. So it's not a bad card at all, especially for 1 cost. That's kind of nice. Blackwing Technician. If you're holding a dragon, gain 1/1. Again, another dragon card. You're going to see most of these neutrals are dragon, either dragons themselves or very helpful to dragon cards. This one is no different. 2/4 for 3 is okay to begin with, but if you can get that buff, if you're running a dragon heavy deck, which I haven't done yet, I'm going to go ahead and try to make a dragon deck now that I have everything unlocked. See how that goes. I'll obviously be using my Paladin, so I can benefit from that card. But should be a good card, especially if you're doing that kind of deck. You're going to need some early damage, and that buff will be pretty nice. This one too. So for 4 cost, the Dragonkin Sorcerer, every time you target him, he gains 1/1, and that becomes very problematic for everyone except for basically the Mage. I mean, the Mage can take him out with 6 damage, but it doesn't get buffed after the damage. It gets buffed before. So if you take something, you target him for damage, all of a sudden he's up to 6 health, right? So you hit him with the first spell, he's up to 6. You go to hit him with a second spell, now he's up to 7 health. He's going to be tough to take down. So very, very effective minion. It's almost like having him cloaked. You know, you almost can't target him, or else you're really going to give him too much. Unless again you have the Fireball of the Mage. It's basically the only way you're going to handle that with the spell. Hungry Dragon. So Hungry Dragon is a dragon, and this is also a dragon too, which is going to be beneficial to a lot of other cards. Summon a 1-cost minion for your opponent. That's fine. You know, when I'm playing against them, it's always nice to have an extra body pop out. When I see that thing come out, I'm like, oh my god. On turn 4, that 5/6 comes out, and then they throw a card to you, and you feel like maybe you can make that work. But let's face it, how many 1-cost minions are going to come out that are really going to offset what you're getting for a 5/6, 6 health minion at turn 4? I don't know how many 1-cost. I'd have to actually look at the 1-cost minions to see, you know, what's the best benefit you can get out of that. But I don't think it offsets. Is a very good card, especially for a dragon deck, obviously. Blackwing Corruptor. If you're holding a dragon, deal 3 damage. Nice. Always nice to be able to throw a card out and then do 3 damage with it immediately. Nothing wrong with that card at all. Grim Patron. So obviously it's linked directly to the Warrior. Warriors are already running this. I've already run into a deck where a guy threw this out at like turn, I don't know, 8 or 9. I can't remember exactly what it was. Probably do the math, you'd be able to tell me. But basically throws this out. He whirlwinds, gets another one. Then I forget what he did. He basically had like 5 of these on the board, like on the same turn. It was ridiculous because then they compound. You hit him. Oh no, he hit him with something. I don't know, and it buffed him up and gave him another one. And then he whirlwind, and he get 2 more out of it. It was a mess. It was a total disaster. I consecrated it and took care of it, but still, it could have been bad. But yeah, good card certainly for the Warrior. There are a lot of other decks that can make that work as well. This guy here was a real pain in the neck. The Draconid Crusher. It seemed like he was a 9/9 every time I saw him within the confines of Blackrock Mountain. But I imagine more often than not. That's the problem with him, and I have a problem with cards that are always like when your opponent is almost dead, this card becomes very effective. Because if my opponent's almost dead, then I probably don't need him to be a 9/9. You know, if you can get him out as a 9/9 earlier on, that'd be nice. But more often than not, you're either going to have a 6/6 earlier in the game because you need to play him at turn 6, or you're going to play him when you're already winning and you're far ahead. And you'll just end up with a 9/9 on the board. So because it's a dragon, it'll get some play for some of these other buffs. But I don't know. Individually, this to me, I would look at more of this as just, it's a 6/6 for 6. Do you like it or do you not? I wouldn't depend on the 9/9 as being any kind of a game changer, personally. Let's see. So for 6 cost, Emperor Thurzon, at the end of your turn, reduce the cost of all cards in your hand by 1. I can't think of a class that wouldn't benefit this. And the funny way to look at this, really, for me, is, you know, if you have a couple of cards, 3, 4, 5 cards in your hand, now turn 6 you may or may not, but you should have a bunch of cards in your hand. Suddenly the 6 cost is really more like a much lower cost because you're losing that mana off of everything else in your hand. Think about it. If you have 4 cards in your hand and you throw this out, you know, and at the end of your turn, those 4 cards, they each lose 1 mana cost. You basically throw them out for 2, right? Because now all of a sudden you're saving 4 mana on the next 4 cards that you play. So, huge. This guy's awesome. I'm throwing him in every deck, probably. I can't imagine a situation where I wouldn't want to do that. I mean, some decks are really tight. You don't want to remove something, but this guy he's pretty good. He's really good. Volcanic Drake. One less for each minion that died this turn. Again, a 6-4 for 6, not great. If you can get that down to 5, you can live with it. If you can get it down to 4, you really got a lot of value out of it. But it requires you to kill a bunch of stuff first. But again, it's minions, not your minions. So if you run one of your minions into one of their minions and kill them both, it's like this guy's suddenly a 4 cost, which is really nice. So, pretty good card. Not great, but good. Red and Black Hand. I mean, an 8-4 for 7, I don't like it. I would almost rather it be a 4-8. I mean, I just can't. At turn 7, which means the guy you're playing against is either going to be at turn 7 or turn 8 after you play him. If they can't kill a minion for 4 health at turn 8, then they're already going to lose again. So, and he's only really beneficial if you have a dragon and they have a legendary minion on the board. A little too specific for me. I don't imagine I'll play him too often because of his stat line. Like if he was a 6-6 even, I could do it. That 4 health is killing me. Gromagus is another one. Very good card, but you're only really going to benefit from him at turn 9 if you throw him out on turn 8, because it's unlikely you're going to have any significant card draw going on after you lay him down in a turn. I mean, you're only going to have, even if it's turn 10, you're only going to have 2 mana left to play. What are you going to play that's going to give you enough card draw to make this worthwhile? Now, if they can't take care of it at the end of their turn, then yes, you'll start to benefit from it. But again, it's a 8 health, so I can live with that, even though it's a 6-8. Total stat-wise, not great, but 6-8, at least I know they're going to have to use some big removal to get rid of him. And this is definitely a target. It's definitely something you could throw out at turn 8, watch them destroy it, and then throw out something nasty turn 9, and they won't have a way to get rid of it. So I could live with that. He's not a bad card. He's Dragon too, which is good. Okay, so Executus here. Replace your hero with Ragnaros the Firelord. Now my big disappointment with this card, aside from the fact that he's a 9/7 for 9, is the fact that he's only got 8 health, and when you fight against him in Blackrock Mountain, he's got 8 health and 8 shield, which makes him a little bit more like Jaraxxus. So 8 health is not a lot, and if you're replacing your hero, you're probably not going to stay alive for very long after that with only 8 health. So he's a tough one. Now, his hero power is completely overpowered, but again, you're probably not going to live long enough to take full advantage of it anyway. But so he's an interesting card. I just don't know how useful he is because of the low amount of health you actually get once he dies and you replace your hero with Ragnaros. Also, if you're winning, you can't throw him out. If you have like 25 health and you throw him out, if he dies, you're suddenly going to have 8 health. That's a huge penalty. So he's a tough one. Nefarian, of course, the last one you get by defeating the last boss, the last boss. Add 2 random spells to your hand from your opponent's class. This just seems like more priest fun, right? I mean, you're getting more stuff from your opponent to play. Again, all these sort of late game cards are always, at that point, you're usually either winning or you're not, but it depends on the type of deck. If you're running a very slow deck and you're kind of having a slugfest, you throw something like this out, you can end up getting lethal damage from your opponent's deck into your hand, and nothing's more fun than killing somebody with their own cards. That's the pleasure of playing priest, and of course the absolute agony of playing against them. But yeah, so Nefarian's kind of fun on the right deck. He might be fun. I could see him throwing into one of those sort of random win, priest decks another way to really piss people off, basically. So yeah, it's safe to say I had a great time with Blackrock Mountain. I haven't gotten my card back yet. I gotta go work on that last heroic guy. I've tried a couple of decks. I haven't spent too much time with him, but I have a feeling he's gonna be a nightmare. I might have to spend hours with him to beat him, but it might just be a matter of getting the right deck. So thank you very much for watching. If you have not seen any of my Blackrock Mountain playthroughs, feel free to click on the link below for the full playlist of it, and you can kind of catch up, see what this is all about, see if you want to buy it yourself if you haven't bought it. Leave comments below if you have any comments about anything I've said or any cards that you like or don't like, and we can sort of talk about that. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again real soon. Oh, I'm a little Hamlet. 400 people.
Oh boy. I'm behind.
Yep. Trophy number
Not
one.
by
goes
much,
to me.
because I literally just turned into a little hammer.
Yeah, but I'm already past that.
Yeah.
Like, that was 4 people.
5 seconds. It's fine.